Kim. Welcome to Aligned Voices by Healthy Aligned Living. And we are really happy to have you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me.
So, how would you introduce yourself to those who are listening to you for the first time?
Oh, basically, my name is Kim Ballas. I am the founder of Sober is the New Cool. I've been called the matriarch of the sobriety world only because over 13 years ago, nobody was talking about this. Most young women today call me Kim Mummy. And that started from someone in the United Kingdom. And it seems that the young women that are from the ages of 28 to 45 love taking my advice because I am not their mother. So it's always easier to listen to somebody that's not your mother. And so that's really who I am. And I started my journey over 13 years ago because my son, Matthew, became epileptic. So he was playing football. We assumed it was always because of concussions and we didn't think it would last, but it did. So he would be on medication the rest of his life. So from one day to the next, sports were taken away from him. Riding a bike, he couldn't do anymore. We never knew when he would have the next seizure. So our lives changed. And finally, after about a year and 11 seizures later, he was put on the right medication. And I said, we have to start living again. And so I started telling him, go out with your friends. And he'd call me 30 minutes after he got home and said, Mom, everybody drinks or does drugs. I don't fit in. So the third time I said to him, Matthew, this doesn't make sense. You don't need alcohol. You don't need drugs to have fun. And as I said it, I had the biggest glass of wine in my hand. And it was like a truck hit me. And I thought, what a hypocrite. So right then at that moment, something took over and I said, I will not drink for 3 months. 3 months came and went. I stopped drinking. And he said, see, Mom, now you could be like everybody else again. So I said, okay. I won't drink for another 3 months. And now it's been over 13 and a half years later, and I've never taken another sip of alcohol. And I realized at that time how hard it was for me socially. I thought, how can a young person go through parties and social events without being, why don't you drink? Why can't you drink? Just have one. And all the stories we hear over and over. And I started Sober is the New Cool for a way for him to be able to talk about it through me because he didn't want to talk about his sickness. He didn't want to talk about his medical condition. And I thought, if he can't talk about knowing that it's a medical condition. Imagine somebody that has other issues. And that's when I decided, you know what? I loved my son more than I loved alcohol or myself. And I was going to support him any way I could. Sober's the New Cool was created on a kitchen island with my sister. She made the logo. I did a trademark. Don't ask me why. Everything just happened. And here we are 13 years later, helping people around the world with wellness because sobriety is not, it's just the tip of the iceberg to trauma, to sadness, to healing. And so we have no judgment. We don't care how you get sober or how you want to be the best version of yourselves. We try to be there and just help people any way we can, whether it's through forms like AA, whether it's a therapist, whether it's exercise. You know, there's so many places, meditation, music. There's so many ways, journaling. So we just think that we're here, we're not judgmental, and we try our best to create places for people to meet up with no matter where they are in the world.
Wonderful. So, looking back at your childhood, what message did you absorb about alcohol growing up? Was drinking normalized, celebrated, avoided? Or did anyone model healthy emotional coping for you?
Well, for me, listen, I'm 65 years old. So when I grew up, there was the party girl. That was normal. If people drank, took their car, everybody drank and drove home, which today I can't even believe that we did that. The Uber system wasn't in place. It was very normal to go out and have wine. It was normal at a young age. My father was Slovak, my mother was French Canadian, to have a little glass of wine at the table. Not a bottle, but a glass. The wine, alcohol was very acceptable in my day. And staying out late and, you know, drinking too much was the norm, should I say. It was in the 80s, that think about it. When you think about New York and Studio 54 and everybody, it was like party central. And even today, we still see a lot of that. All the advertisements where everything has alcohol in it to having fun. And now we're changing that slowly.
And as a child, how were you? And what dreams did young Kim have for herself?
It's funny because I grew up, I had a good life. I had a great family. Um, but the one thing I never really felt was that I was good enough. I was never tall enough. I was never smart enough. I was never, I was always afraid to ask. Let's say I didn't understand a question or what somebody was doing or talking about. I was too shy to ask and say, like today, I don't really understand what you're talking about. Explain it to me. There was always this fear of not being enough. And I think that that's where I didn't like confrontation. So alcohol played a part in that. Now looking back, whether I had a problem or not, I don't even go there because I hate labels. To me, I know my life is better without it. And I will promise one thing. I probably will never have another sip because my life is so much better and I am able to communicate better now. Before, I would say things. I wasn't sad about what I said. I was sad about how I said it. And that was where the alcohol came in because alcohol normally makes people a little more aggressive than what they are. And so for me, I think that that was like a form of liquid courage in many senses.
Mhm. So it would be right on my part to say that there were parts of you that you felt you had to hide in order to fit in by
Yes.
consuming
And I think
alcohol.
Yeah, and I think most people uh, that I've met in the last 13 years all felt some sort of emptiness or some sort of not belonging. And that's where it first started. For some people, they never got addicted. Some people did. And other people, today, I feel that mental health is such a huge um, p- portion of it that the alcohol, if there is mental health issues and anxiety that we all seem to have had during COVID, after COVID, before COVID, the dream of wanting to be like everyone else, the dream of wanting to fit in, plays a big part in that. And I think wellness now is taking over, especially with the young people. I'm seeing a shift where they want a clear mind. They want to be able to exercise. They want to meditate. Their lifestyle is a lot different than when I was growing up, I believe.
And talking about alcohol, what was your first experience with alcohol? Was it like exciting, or did you feel a bit of discomfort when you were consuming it for the first time? Or did it feel like something that was had belong somewhere?
Well, no, I think it was more for me, it was more that feeling of letting loose, being able to be more myself, not being so shy. I think that was more what it was, that it, all the inhibitions were lowered. It felt like I could talk more. Now we know we don't dance as well as we thought we danced when we were drinking. But those things are the things that I think that especially in my day, everybody seemed to be in that frame of mind where, and some women that I've spoken to feel that when they would have a drink, that made them even feel like they were prettier,
Hmm.
that they gave them a bit more confidence to stand up taller or talk more so I think for me it was more a fun thing and not being shy to dance, not being shy to introduce myself. It was more that kind of thing than anything else, I think.
And when did you first consume? What age were you in?
Say 15 or 16, yes.
And Looking back at that period of your life, what kind of social circles were you part of, and how did those circles influence the choices that you were making?
Well, first of all, when I was, in my early 14, 15, I went to a private girls' school with nuns and I lived there. I slept there from Sunday night to Friday night. So you couldn't get into much trouble there. But come the weekends, I guess that's where the trouble started because that's where I saw my friends or whatever. But in those days, it was so normalized that there was none of that ugliness, or maybe it was just because so many people were doing it at the time, and nobody actually talked about mental health. Nobody talked about anxiety. Nobody talked about depression. Nobody talked about feelings, or well, at least not in my family. Everything was okay. And you had the white picket fence and that's the way it was. So I it's kind of hard when I look back because not all my friends drank as a lot or a little, but the party scene was still the thing. Every Friday night or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, one of those nights, everybody went out, you know.
And were you like drinking frequently, or were those confined, limited to those days that you just said, like Friday,
Yes.
Thursday?
Yeah, it was, well, plus I was in a private girls' school, so there was no drinking allowed there for sure. But it was really the weekends. And then I moved to the United States and I went to university in Florida. And that was where probably um, but that was also weekend because we were in school during the week. And I think I was lucky with who I was surrounded with. Did we drink too much on the weekends? Absolutely. There's no question that we didn't have hangovers or we felt tired or sick or, didn't want to go to work the next day or whatever we were supposed to be doing. Um, but like I said, looking back, I guess I was lucky in the sense that nothing really bad ever happened in those days. And, by the grace of God, because God only knows when young women are drinking what can happen. Um, so I guess it was okay. Then, life went on. I got married, I had children. And I guess um, that's when things probably, my father died when I was 40. And he was, you know, such a great uh, person in my life. Missing him and having the kids and the youngness, I guess kids with homework and responsibilities and all that, it was 4:30, 5 o'clock, everybody had a glass of wine. And that's probably where it became more of a habit that, the minute the homework was finished, you had a glass of wine. Or I think that's probably more where I think looking back, probably I could have done better than when I was younger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, talking about the turning point when Matthew's diagnosis came in, can you take us back to the day when Matthew had the seizure for the first time?
Well, the first time he was on a school trip, believe it or not, and he was in Jay Peak in the United States, and we were in Montreal, Canada. So we could not get to him because they were already at the hospital. It happened like around midnight. So by the time they were in the hospital, the MRIs were done. They were going to be taking the bus very early the next morning. So there was no point in us going there. They were going to be back before we got there. And we went straight to the hospital. And I have to say, that's when life really changed because I guess having a sick child or a situation where it's very hard to see a child have a grand mal seizure. The arms, the legs, the when they come to after a minute or two of going through the seizure is very traumatic and they don't know where they are and they just want to push everybody out of the way. And you just never expect that to happen in your life. And to see, a 13-year-old boy, because he was about 13 when the first one happened, not to be able to ride a bike because I was so afraid. What if he was on his bike and he had a seizure? So I became, I think, a little bit too protective. Not that I should have let him ride a bike, but that's where I think, um, and I was nervous. So I think, too, I would have a glass of wine here and there. And then I realized, what if he has a seizure in the night? I can't have a glass of wine. And then we always took an ambulance because you had to call the ambulance with those kinds of seizures. But not to be lucid or not to be in full control. I guess that played a big part of standing by him and knowing that I had to do whatever I could as a mother to find a way for him to be able to have a great life without alcohol, without drugs. And, and for sure he was young. He wanted to be like one of the boys in the park drinking beer. That's what, or talking to girls or dancing on a bar. I don't know, doing silly things with that boys do or girls do at that age. And not to be able to experience that was hard. And to be surrounded by people with alcohol was tempting. And that was hard because that was not going to end in a good situation. So for me, it was very hard seeing, especially the friends that he had, be afraid to be around him because it's traumatic to watch.
I get it completely. So when Matthew realized alcohol was no longer an option for
No.
him, how did he react to the whole thing?
Well, it was hard. I got to tell you, he is now 8 years seizure free. But
Wonderful.
5 years till we got there. Sometimes, yes, he did have alcohol, whether he was at a wedding or something. He's going to be 29 years old, by the way, in August. So, um, but you start to feel better, and then you think, oh, I can have 2 or 3 drinks right at the beginning, and you want to fit in. And I think that there was a lot of moments where. Um, it was hard. It was hard. It was a very hard time. And having football taken away from him that's who he thought he was. Without football, he had no self confidence. And that was hard for us too, for him to realize that football was part of him. It wasn't who he was. But that was really hard. And even today, I have to say, when he goes to a wedding or whatever, he will go home earlier than later. He doesn't really like being around it. I don't know. He doesn't say he's tempted, but I know 13 years later, I still get tempted. So, there's moments where I'll be at a wedding or the summertime when people go on their boats or something happens the cigarettes that I used to smoke, the champagne that I used to drink, it does come in my mind sometimes, and I have to go, oops, okay, like turn around, that's not it, so I think it has to be only normal that sometimes, but he's very good. He's decided that he chooses, or maybe he's lucky enough that most of the people that he surrounds himself with don't drink. And a lot of the kids he went to school with have come to him in the past 5 or 6 years saying that they had an issue with either gambling or alcohol or cocaine. So that has been good where they've come and said, someone's come out of rehab. Can we have some of your t-shirts? And we are going to wear the t-shirt, Sober is the New Cool, to the party. So they bring non-alcoholic beer or whatever, but that's kind of like their shield, like, no, we don't drink and we're like a gang. So it's kind of a nice thing for them to have that. Um, because it is cool not to drink. It is cool to be yourself. It is cool um, to just be who you are and be the best version of who you are.
Absolutely. So, would it be fair to say that alcohol was a primary addiction you were struggling with, or were there other challenges that you were navigating at that time? Like when you were consuming, was it like just for fun, or you
No,
were
it was really,
navigating something?
it was more for fun.
Hmm.
But I have to say, there was a habit. There was a habit. And, it was more like every day at 5 o'clock or, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, whatever the timing was, it always seemed to be the same time. And I find that now, even with non alcohol choices, I don't do that very often because I don't want to get into that mindset of every day at 5 o'clock. I'm fine with water. I'm fine with Perrier. Um, so I, most people say, no, you never had a problem. But to me, I think if I never have had another sip in 13 years, there had to be some sort of problem, or I didn't feel at my best. I didn't feel, um, I would think that alcohol wasn't a depressant for me. I don't think I was living my best life when I was drinking. I had a good life. I didn't have a bad life, but I don't think my life would have ever turned out the way it has now, and have had the opportunities I have now, and have met the people that I have now, had it not been for continuing that way instead of choosing to be alcohol free.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that you had initially committed to 3 months
Yes.
without alcohol. So, at what point did you realize that, okay, this wasn't a temporary experiment anymore? In fact, this has to be permanent.
I don't think I really even realized it because the first few years of Matthew's epilepsy was so up and down, where we would have, 6 months of seizure free, and then we would have an episode. Or I think that I was living on the edge right then him, and being afraid, and just wanting the best for him. So there was really no choice. I guess he used me and I used him because he didn't like to tell people he couldn't drink. So he used to say, "You can't bring alcohol to my house," because my mother stopped drinking for me. And I used to say, "I can't drink because I made a promise to Matthew." So I don't know if that answers your question, but
It does. It does.
I think just time, I guess at that 3 month mark, um, and when I committed to 6 months, it just kept going.
So you both were helping each other.
Each other. Yes,
Yes.
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 Yeah. Mm.
So, many assume that sobriety comes after you hit the rock bottom.
Yes.
But your story challenges that narrative. So, what do you wish more people understood about choosing being sober before things became catastrophic?
Well, I think the one thing now I say the word wellness very often because it opens the door to people without that stigma. People do not want to say recovery. People do not want to say addict. People do not want to say those words. For some reason, there's still stigma attached to that. So I think by saying, walk for your mother, walk for your brother, walk for your sister, walk for your neighbor for our international recovery walk, it opens the door to remember that mental health is mental health, and nobody wants to be addicted to any substance, whether it's gambling, whether it's sex, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs. Nobody wants to have anxiety. Nobody wants to have depression. So I think that by saying wellness, it opens the door for people to say, okay, maybe there's something here that I need to fix without all the heaviness of those labels. So I try to use different words because I find that when I do use those words, or I have these tiny white hearts that I give around the world, and I just put them sometimes in someone's hand and I say, "I'm glad you exist," or "Have a nice day." Or sometimes I won't say anything at all. I see somebody very sad, or I see somebody sleeping on the side of the road, and I'll put the white heart, hoping that they will know that somebody is just happy that they exist and somebody was thinking of them. And I think kindness goes a long way. I think people need to know that it's okay to ask for help. I think it's
Mhm.
okay that whether you have 5 drinks or 3 drinks or 25 drinks, there's not a number for you to realize there's an issue. If you're not feeling great, just try something new, whether it's dry January, whether it's dry July that's coming up next month, whether it's sober October. It just gives a little bit of an option for people to see, how is my life with alcohol or drugs or without? So it's a nice way to try something new and for health benefits, for losing weight. There's all kinds of things you can say, which makes it a little bit better. And, I just hope people realize that you're not alone. Normally, or since I stopped drinking, wherever I go, and I'll tell people, no, I don't drink. Someone will come and sit beside me and say, how did you say that? When did you stop drinking? I stopped drinking, or I would like to stop drinking. So there's so many people that you can help. And there's so many people that will be happy to help you.
Absolutely. So, talking about being sober, there's another aspect we often tend to forget is the relapse.
Yes.
So, I think there is a lot of shame that circles relapse.
To me, that's one thing. I'm all for AA and anything that can help someone. I do not agree with if you have that part of relapse, because it happens to the best of everyone. And I don't want there to be shame. I want people to say, okay, I made a mistake or something happened. Why did it happen? Let's figure out how for it not to happen again, and have no shame to come and say, what do I need? What else can I do? Where else can I go? To not have to have that happen. But it most of the times, most people do have relapses. And during COVID, there were doctors that had been sober for 15 years, phenomenal doctors that crashed somehow and had a relapse during COVID. I can't tell you how many people had that happen. So there's no shame in that. Nobody. I'm 65. I have never in my entire life met anyone that's perfect. So if you have, well, then okay, but I don't think anybody has. So it's okay to be, uh, to have different things happen and to get through them with help.
Absolutely. And I think we also need to understand that it's okay that this happens and it can happen several times, but then you need to be consistent and
Yeah.
you will
Yeah.
find your way out of this.
Yeah. And find out why you go back to that. Is it the people? Is it something inside where I think most of the times it's feelings that people don't want to feel because it's hard. Life is hard. And, it's those feelings are hard to manage and it's hard to talk about.
Absolutely. And now coming back to the birth of the movement,
Yes.
when did the words "sober is the new cool" first come to you?
I guess it was about a few months after Matthew, because the first year was when it came, because then we realized that that's when. So my sister and I still can't really remember. We remember being together, um, on a airplane, and she had a napkin and she was making logos on a napkin, and she had put the sober to go up and down like this, and I turned the napkin and put it this way, and I liked it better as a wave because I think sobriety is like a wave. It goes up and down, and the movement of it, and so it started because he really didn't want to talk about his sickness. He didn't want to talk about not being able to drink, and I thought, how, and when I was being in social situations and to be talked to, what's wrong with you? Why can't you have just one? Nobody's going to know. I thought, wow, this is really hard. It's like never eating a piece of chocolate again or a cookie. People, just if they put that in their brain, I think they'd be a little bit nicer to people when they stop drinking or whatever, right? Because it
Yes.
is hard. It's very hard.
And so this phase is really powerful because if you ask me, I believe it reframes sobriety and
Yes.
entirely. So why was it important for you? Only if you agree with me. Why was it important for you to position sobriety as something positive rather than something restrictive?
Well, over 13 years ago when I started this, nobody was talking about sobriety. And I wanted to talk about it like we were talking about the sunshine. I met a young woman from London, England, and she became like the daughter I never had. Unfortunately, we lost her 2 years ago, but she asked me to do a tattoo. We did a tattoo together with the infinity sign with one pink heart and one white heart. And we would talk every single day on WhatsApp. And she was young. And I was so proud at the fact that she was young and she was trying. And I think that's my message is to everyone out there that's young. And even if they've had a relapse, the fact that you're even trying when you're young is such a magnificent step in the right direction. Just keep going, keep trying because the world needs you. There's only one of you. So, you know what? We want you at the best that you can be.
Yes. And you spoke about being sober, using sobriety when nobody else was talking, or maybe few were talking about it.
Yeah.
So, did you ever hesitate to put yourself so publicly behind this message?
It was hard for my husband, I think, because, growing up, we're 65. You didn't talk about your problems outside the house. You didn't, psychologists, psychiatrists, nobody did that or talked about it. So for me to talk about it so openly, and, some people would say, oh, I didn't know you were an alcoholic. So that, kind of, but people will say shopaholic and they think it's funny, right? So
Hmm.
I just thought, okay, I have to change this because my son can't have alcohol. And we have to reframe this. First of all, nobody should be drinking and driving, number one. So I'm so proud of the young people that came up with the Ubers and do all that. So life can be great no matter how. You can exercise, you can journal, you can write, you can play guitar. You can achieve things that you don't think you can. You can. Because I did it. I walked in Fashion Week at 62 years of age. I mean, not in my wildest dreams at 5'2" did I ever think that was going to happen because of a fashion show that was done in New York City about sobriety and mental health. That's where it came in. So these are moments that are building for all these young people and people my age or older. I have one woman who stopped drinking at the age of 82, and her grandkids said, we want you to wear that t shirt because we got our grandmother back. I mean, what a gift.
It's definitely a blessing.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't make these stories up. I mean, the people I've met, one woman in Africa sent me a message about her son. And I said, oh my God, I know a young boy that's in Africa. Let me see, let me text him. And it took them 3 tries, but her son now is sober because this other young man got sober. And he helped her navigate where to go for her son. So you don't know what what you do to help somebody can do and how that helps somebody else. So, it's a gift.
And I think this is just not confined to alcoholism or substance abuse. I think any form of addiction, you can find your way
Yeah.
through any form of addiction.
Whatever you choose. I mean, and to anyone who's young or middle aged or older, I can promise you this. It will be better than where you are right now if you're struggling.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so when you launched this moment, did
Yeah.
people embrace it immediately,
Yeah.
or did you encounter any sort of
Activity.
hesitations or negativity or skepticism?
I have to say that the London, England, and the UK embraced it because they were talking about it a lot before everyone else. The United States embraced it before Canada did. Canada is getting better, but I have to say it's taken. The world is slowly coming around. But had it not been when I started this was never supposed to be what this is today. It was supposed to be for my son to use as a form of getting through a situation. And it turned into, and over the years, every time I wanted to stop or I'd think, okay, it's enough, something would happen. Somebody would call, somebody would need something, or somebody would thank me because of something I had done for them. And I thought, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think by giving back to others and people trusting you with their stories, with their sadness, with their fears is the biggest compliment I could have ever received in my life.
Wonderful. And when you were working towards this moment, do you recall the first message from a stranger that made you realize your work was changing lives?
To be honest with you, um, the I've just realized in the last year that where I could finally say I'm making a difference. I think that's part of who I was. I was always afraid to not be conceited. So you didn't compliment yourself when I was growing up. There was a big thing with that. You were more subdued. You didn't say, I'm proud of what I'm doing. Whereas today, I think we're teaching our kids and people to be proud of every step. And when I went to London, England this year, and I met women that I had met over 8 years ago that came to meet me to have lunch. When I left London, I said, okay, I have changed some lives and I'm doing a good job. And I am proud of myself finally, but at 65, and I don't want anyone to wait till they're 65 to be proud of themselves. I want them to be proud of themselves today.
We all are proud of you, Kim.
Thank you.
You are involved in different projects.
Yes.
Yeah. So, can you tell us a little more about the work you do through Sober is the New Cool, the community you have built, and the impact you have witnessed over the years?
So basically, we have three events. We have the White Party in New York City in the month of June every year, where people fly from across the United States and Canada, and it's women just wear white, and we connect, and they become friends. And I have to tell you, there. When people talk about the addictions they've had or the addictions their children have had or have, everyone, or there seems to be always someone at the table that their shoulders go down and say, me too. They understand the world that we are living in, and they're not afraid to share, and they become stronger because of it. Then we have a walk in Central Park the following day that, is very, very good. And then we have International Recovery Month in September. We had 37 countries walk with us virtually. So basically, I have people make teams from around the world, whether you're one person or five or 50, and they walk together. So people make a team and people will know in London, England, in this town, there's a girl that if you want to join her, you can walk. You can walk in New York. You can walk in Georgia. You can walk in Toronto. You can walk in Vancouver. You can walk in India. I have people that walk in China. I have people that walk in Portugal, Germany, Italy. We had 37 countries. This year we're trying to get 40 countries. So basically there's a link on my Instagram. You just sign up. It is free. And it's just so people know they're not walking alone. And that's it. And it forms a sense of community. It forms a sense of people coming together because I know a lot of people have said to me, well, we can't come to the walk because we don't want our neighbors to know. Your neighbors normally know if your kids are in trouble, your husband's in trouble, or you're in trouble. It's not, it's very rare that people hide it that well, right? So,
Yes.
and I think people are finally talking about it, which makes the stigma go down. And a walk like this, and that's why I call it walking for wellness, because it opens the door for people to, it is the International Recovery Walk. It is the International Recovery Month for the world. So why wouldn't you want to walk with the world?
That's a very wonderful initiative where everyone comes together from different geography. They have one voice. And talking about the initiative, I think it extends far beyond alcohol. So, why was it very important for you to integrate conversations around mental health into your mission?
I think for me as a mother, it was very sad, a very sad time for me. I think for my son to have sports taken away, which helps with mental health, which helps with kids, for anxiety, for aggression, for everything. It's a great thing for that to be taken away. and to feel like he was not good because he couldn't play football again. I think I realized at that moment, and then I started to question, or the people that started reaching out to me all had some sort of issue, whether it was sadness, whether it was, and why did they find me out of 8 billion people in the world? I've had women find me that came out of rehab and said they turned on their computer and the first Instagram or Facebook page that they turned on was me. That's not me. That's something so much bigger than me. That's God. That's the universe. Call it whatever you will. But there's a reason. And I think that the more it went, the more I realized the sadness that people had inside. And never, never, until you've walked in someone else's shoes, I think you can never judge why they do some of the things they do or why they've had some of the struggles. And I've met a lot of people that should never have had the life they had. Nobody deserves that. So by helping somebody, I think it just transformed. It was like, I don't know. To this day, it's 13 and a half years later. I still don't know how I got here sometimes. I think this is crazy.
I think a lot of people resonated with you and what you were trying to convey. I think that is something that brought everybody closer and they wanted to try.
And I think maybe because I was older, I was 52 at the time. So I wasn't young. I was that mother ish figure. I think that helped. I think the white hair, for some reason, maybe was a bit of a thing. Uh, but I think they thought, oh, how can she be talking about that like this? How is she talking about it with a smile on her face? Why is she, why is this so easy? And I think that did open the door for a lot of people to realize if I could, why couldn't they?
Beautiful. And you are involved in a lot of things, and White Heart is one of the
Yes.
initiatives. So, could you
Yeah.
share more about this initiative?
So the White Heart Initiative is a tiny, because I used to try and, with the proceeds of selling T-shirts and hoodies, send it to people that would need them. But it became too expensive with shipping and whatever. So we do still sell them, but the White Heart was something that people could donate to. I could have a little white card with a heart on. I write it by hand, the message, whether the person wants to receive it or they want me to send it to somebody else on their behalf. And, I think when I started giving these white hearts out, I don't know why I would give them when I gave them. And 9 times out of 10, somebody said they were having the worst day, or they had just gotten bad news, or they were just glad that I thought enough of them to give them this tiny white heart. And I call it a tiny white heart. And, they can keep it in their pocket, they can keep it in their wallet, they can keep it beside their bed. And I've had so many people reach out to me and say, you have no idea how many times I've held on to that white heart and somehow my anxiety lessened, or I didn't have that drink, or I didn't do something foolish because I knew I had you. And I guess and they send it to somebody else. I've had some women actually now that once I get donations, sometimes I'll send one young woman. Well, she's probably 45. She was going back to school to get her degree to help young women. And she said, Kim, there's a sorority house and they would love to have a white heart. So one time when I got a donation, I was able to send her these tiny white hearts, and she placed it in all these young women's hands in this university. And you know what? She said they couldn't believe it. And when I do place this in somebody's hand, the my husband's seen me do it and he just says, oh my God, I don't understand how they get so emotional. And I guess there's something healing about a crystal white heart. And so this has really become my go to now because it's small enough to send, it's easy enough for me to send, and it makes people feel great.
Thank you for doing that, Kim. When people are in their low, I think that does make a
Yes.
difference to them.
And like I said, sometimes I just stop and I just put it in somebody's hand. Don't ask me why. And then they say, "Oh my God, you have no idea." One woman said to me, she was at the Air Canada counter at the airport, and I placed this in her hand just because she had been so nice. She said she lost her mother on her shift and she was not allowed to leave her shift. And she felt like at least her mother was with her through that white heart. So, you know, if it can help somebody through a moment or a time of crisis or whatever it may be and give them some hope, we're going to keep trying to give out as many as we can.
Yeah, I would definitely like to have one. So we can talk about it after this session because I feel an emotional connect with it. You were talking about so many real time experiences. I think, yeah, it does have a healing power.
And also, it's good for anyone that wants one. All they have to do is reach out. And, any donation will help just me send more of these little white hearts out. So I'm happy to do it.
Absolutely. So now that we are talking about, how they can donate, can you tell them how they can do that?
Yes, so it's soberistheNewCool.ca. You can go on Instagram. There's a link there where you can donate to the White Heart Initiative. And it's easy. You just press a button and there you go. And normally what happens is once they've made a donation, then I reach out to the person and I ask them, is it for them? Or they can DM me on Instagram saying, I would love the heart, or I would love the heart to go to somebody. And then they choose their message and I write it in the card on behalf of them. And so they know somebody thought enough of them to send this little white heart to them.
And you often say you don't need booze to have fun. But why do you think our culture still struggles to believe that? Why do people still struggle with this fact?
I think you know what? Every advertisement, every wedding, every um, time you think of an occasion, whether it's a wedding, a birthday party, it's been there for so long that I think that's part of the issue. And the Super Bowl, everybody what drinks. Every occasion where there's something big, they talk about alcohol, and they're so surprised when an athlete will say, "Well, no, I didn't drink to celebrate." They make a big deal out of it. Where there's a lot more that don't. And, there's so many great options now to have something in your hand to make you feel like you're part of. Because I think that's part of it too, is having something in your hand to make you feel like you're part of it. And I do think that alcohol, in many instances, makes people feel a little more courageous. I think it gives them a little bit more self confidence, or they think it's going to make them feel like, easier, where in fact they're better just being who they are. But a lot of times I think people are afraid not to be accepted.
Yes, definitely. And I think the way alcohol has been presented or it's been a part of any celebration, and even if you
Yeah,
go to a convenience store, you will see them beautifully placed when you enter. So, so you can actually
yeah,
spot them
yeah.
easily. A lot of factors definitely add on. One of the thing that you've spoken about is gaining confidence without alcohol. So, who is Kim today that alcohol never allowed her to become? And
Oh,
what parts of you did it give you back?
I think the best part is finally thinking I'm enough. Doesn't mean I can't be better than I am today, and I'm still a work in progress. But finally thinking, you know, even though I was never a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, who I am and what I give now to the world is a great thing. And for me to be able to finally say I am proud of who I am is probably the biggest um, gift I've been able to be able to say it out loud, because it's hard to say that you're proud of yourself. Well, at least for me, it was. I tried to do this exercise with people to say, look in the mirror every morning before you go to work or school and say, I love whatever, your eyes, your nose, your hair, whatever, something And it's very hard to do, or I'm proud of myself with, and I think affirmations is probably from me giving those to other people has helped me the most.
Can we say you became the best of your version, that you thought that you were not there when you were consuming alcohol?
No, and you know what? I think I was too afraid just to be me. I think I was always here. I just think I was too afraid to be me.
So why a lot of women rely on alcohol to cope with the stress, or they think they are not perfect, even loneliness, or they are overwhelmed at times. And so, what emotional work did sobriety ask of you?
You know, again, I think I, I was, I told Matthew once, Matthew, I'm so sad you were sick, but you gave me back my life or gave me back a life. And I truly believe that because he came first. So it was easy to forget about what I needed, what I was missing. It became focused on him. And maybe that's the way I made it easier for me not to drink because it was really, I had to be the best of me to be the best mother for him. And we went through therapy. And I have to say, at one point, one therapist had said to me, "Oh, you worked outside the home." And I said, "No, I never worked outside the home. I was a stay at home mother. All the kids were at my house all the time." And he had been talking about being bullied because he was so tall and so big, which is why he was a great football player. But growing up, kids made fun of him. And she said, "Well, you missed him with all his feelings." And that's when I thought, oh, wow, how did I miss that? So that was an eye opener to that part because I had to say, oh, I was home. The kids were always in the house with all their friends. How did I miss that? Now, but I'm not perfect. I can admit now today that that was a great thing that it was said to me for me to pay more attention. And I think for mothers or people today, there's so much stress in this world. There's so much ugliness. Like we were talking about before, the screen time. Families don't, during COVID, I have to say that was one thing where everybody sat down as a family. There was a lot more connection because that's all you had. You had your tiny little bubble. And I think that's what the world needs the most is for people to connect and put the screens down. I think it's a great thing for people that, especially that are going through a hard time, to see are talking about it openly and honestly and give them hope. I think there's some great stuff, but there's also negativity to screen time. People saying they're sober coaches and they're not qualified. So there's a real fine line of what people can find on the internet and what can be helpful and not helpful. And not everybody is nice on the internet, so that is hard.
Yes, and you have spoken publicly about anxiety too, right?
Yes.
How has sobriety changed your relationship with anxiety and emotional regulations?
I told you I walked in Fashion Week at the age of 62. For 2 weeks before that, I was a complete mess. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat very well. I went right back to that young girl of feeling unworthy and not feeling enough and being so afraid to walk for 30 seconds or a minute, whatever it was that I walked down this stage. Um, and that was a real eye opener because I remember thinking, oh, if only I could have a vodka martini or if I had wine, it would probably make it a lot easier. What it would have done would have removed the the evening completely because by being so afraid and being able to go through that and scared out of my mind and to be able to achieve that at the end of the night, there was another proud moment for me. And to have 200 people in a room that were sober because no alcohol was being served at that Fashion Week fashion show was an atmosphere I'd never experienced in my life. So
Wonderful. And how was the feeling? How did you
You
feel
know,
on the ramp
I,
and off the ramp when you actually
I
did
think
it?
I was scared to death, but at the end, I came up with a saying when I first started this. When people would say, well, what do you say when you go to a wedding? What do you say when you go somewhere and you can't drink? When they ask you, why don't you drink? And I say, the thing that I came up with right from the beginning was, I'm so glad I'm never going to miss another memory. Will cherish for the rest of my life that had I been drinking, I probably wouldn't have remembered everything.
And you also shared that people you have met in this journey are among the most creative,
Oh
genuine,
God,
and
yeah.
kind people that you have
Oh,
known.
and
Why do you think
eh,
pain often produces such compassionate people?
I don't know, but I have to say, every person, I just feel so lucky. The people I've met, whether it's a veteran, whether it's a minister, whether it's a young mother, whether it's a grandmother, these people bring such beautiful things. And I think because they are so sensitive, that's what makes them be creative. That's what makes them be sensitive. That's what makes them beautiful. That's what makes them giving. And I think that, um, when they come out of their addiction or their depressions or whatever, and they start to flourish, they realize how great they have been all along. They've always been great. I think that's the biggest achievement.
What are some signs that someone might need support? Like, how can we identify that?
Yeah, maybe when someone removes themselves from their community, when they seem to be lonely, when they seem to be alone a lot. The sadness you can normally see in someone's eyes, the quietness. Sometimes you just can sit beside someone and not say a word, but just sit there so they know you're there. I think sometimes there's no question to be asked. Sometimes I think just holding somebody's hand. I think checking in on somebody by text. Um, I think you just have to stop because I think there's many moments during a day where we all do the same thing where I know I do, where I think, oh, I should call this person just to see how they are or how their son or their daughter or their mother or their grandmother. And then you forget because life gets busy. And I think if I could tell anybody something, just pick 3 people every single day and just do something nice. Just send them a text message. Just let them know you care. And I think that that also opens the door for people to know, oh, they thought of me. Not just once, but more than once, because then people feel like, oh, maybe I can trust them, to be honest. Maybe, I can say something. Maybe I can just go for coffee. Sometimes it's just getting somebody out of the house. Sometimes it's just doing a FaceTime because some people feel like when they get depressed, they have to stay inside and isolate. That's a huge sign, I think, to know that somebody needs help. But people have to want the help, but sometimes you can nudge it along. Sometimes just with a little tiny white heart, you just put somebody's hand and say, I think you're worthy. I think you deserve this. A kind word, a smile. There's all kinds of things that people can do.
And talking about your son, he became the catalyst for this entire
Yes,
movement. So,
yes.
what has Matthew taught you about resilience?
Oh, I think for him, seeing everything he had to go through was very, very hard. And he could have chosen alcohol. He could have chosen drugs because a lot of people would, because it was not a fun time and it was like easier to forget. And so I'm very proud of him for sticking to it and getting through it and being remaining kind and not negative. He was negative at the beginning. It was only natural. I was negative. We were all negative. Nobody wants that. But I think that he's happy today. And that's wonderful to see, that he's come out through the other side. And, he sees that it's okay not to drink and it's okay. And I think the fact that I said I would do something and I stuck to it is the biggest thing for him, because he knows whatever I say I'm going to do, I'm going to do, and I'm going to stick by his side for the rest of his life.
So, how has your relation evolved since you chose sobriety? I know he was the one who actually became the catalyst for this, but then how has your relationship through the whole journey shaped up with him? How has it evolved?
It became much better right from the beginning, because, like I said, we were in therapy, and one of the first questions was asked, something like, "How do you feel at this moment?" or "What do you think you could do better?" Or, and Matthew didn't say anything, so I said, "Okay, I'll go first." And I said, "I'm sorry I wasn't a good enough mother for you. I'm sorry I didn't see you being bullied. I'm sorry," and I cried. And I think me being open and honest and admitting that I wasn't the perfect mother and I made mistakes, let him say something. And from that moment, whenever we had something to deal with, I think I was more apt to go downstairs and talk to him one on one instead of in front of my husband, in front of my other son. So I think that was a big thing. Um, he comes to the walk every year and he's so proud. And, we're lucky enough that CTV News covers it every single year, and they interview him, and he is happy. He's happy. We've come through this together, and we will stick through this together. So yeah.
I think this has become such a wonderful cause. Your movement is giving everybody a purpose, and that's exactly why people love connecting with it.
Well, and I want people to know, there's nothing to be ashamed of becoming healthy and well. There's nothing to be ashamed of, no matter how you do it, how you get there, to be the best version of yourself. Don't ever apologize for that. Be proud, because it's the hardest thing you can do.
Yes. So, what do you hope Matthew says about you someday?
Well, we have our ups and downs, but I think the best thing is that he's proud that I created something from nothing. I think he's proud of the work I've done. I think that he's proud of what I've been able to achieve. And I think the biggest thing for him is the tiny white heart. I think that that's something that really, you don't need any words with this. It's just easy, and it just shows love and it shows hope. And I think that's probably the thing that's the best that's come out of it, making people feel that they're not alone, and we're just glad they exist.
Yes. And they do hold on to those hearts, right? During
Yeah.
the tough time. And I think that is quite an appreciation. And it
Yeah.
actually helps you realize that you're making a difference,
Mm.
right? Such a tiny thing with so much of
Yes.
significance.
Yes. And I think that's the beauty of it all. Like, I guess I never thought when I first did it that it would ever turn out to be such an important thing. And it is. And then, you know what? In life, it always is the tiny things, isn't it? That we
Yes.
remember how
Yes.
somebody made us feel.
Absolutely. A small gesture, or maybe a smile, or maybe, greeting someone when,
Yeah.
you least expect. So,
Yeah.
yes.
Opening a door for someone. It
Yes.
can be a number of things today. So, just to be kind, I think and, when you do something nice for someone, I think that that makes them do something nice for someone else.
Someone. Yes. It's a chain reaction.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's something I just wanted to ask. Is there something that you have never shared publicly and that you're ready to share now?
There's only one thing I've never shared, was a picture of my 50th birthday where I look very, very sad. I shared it with young women only because it's a picture of me and my mother at my 50th birthday, and I'm in tears. My face is puffy. There was a sadness about me and I haven't put it out on the internet only because I share it with young women, because I think A lot of people think, oh, it's so easy. You're 13 years sober, or, your son was sick. It's easy. But when you see a picture like that, it makes people remember that nobody's life has been that easy. And that, you know, y- I had sad moments. And the fact that I share it privately with people one on one is, I think, not that I don't want to share it with everybody. I think it makes it more special that way, that people see it, that I'm actually sharing something as one of the saddest days, even though it should have been one of the happiest days. I was very sad that day. I was very sad. I was sad that Matthew was sick. I was very sad for many reasons at that time. And, I think that that's the beauty of sharing some things privately sometimes, and not, uh,
In an
all out
open
there.
space.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, so is there something that you are still healing from?
No, I don't think so anymore. I think I'm finally, after being in London this year and after being in New York, and there was one young girl that came to the party in New York this year. Um, And she said she had bought her ticket when she was 4 weeks sober, and she didn't feel she was worthy of coming to the white party. And I thought, oh, no, 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 this can never happen to anybody. We have to change that, mentality. And she was 4 months sober that night. And the women that showed her love and compassion and changed her evening, and she was afraid to come, and I applaud her. I told her, I'm so proud of you coming here, especially alone, especially being afraid, feeling not worthy, but you are worthy of it all. You are worthy of a good life, as is everyone.
Yes. And is there a chapter of your life that people assume that it's resolved because you're sober now, but you're still actively working through it?
Well, I think I'm pretty good. I think I meditate. I exercise a lot. Health, as you get older, you have to be more conscious of your health. I've had some health issues, so those are things that. But I think that wellness, whether sobriety is just the beginning. The rest comes with it: exercise, meditation. Um, New York this year, this was something. One woman dances. For her, dancing is her way to relieve anxiety, depression, and keep her sober. So this year, I said to her before the white party, I said, Lisa, will you do me a favor? I said, you can say no, but I would love you to guide the women in the middle of Central Park and make them all dance in the middle of Central Park. And she said, I'll do it. And so in the middle of Central Park, I kept saying to the ladies, oh, we're going to stop somewhere and I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. And I explained to them that every time I saw this woman, Lisa, I always thought, oh, I wish one day I would have the nerve or the guts to be able to do something crazy, something fun, something like letting go completely. And she made us all dance, and everybody's arms were up in the air, and we were all smiling, and people were watching us and videotaping us because it really was a beautiful moment. And, it just shows you that there's so much happiness that can come from something just like that. So, yeah, it was another memory we'll never forget.
So, Kim, just wanted to ask a few more questions before I asked the last concluding question. So, what is your morning ritual that you never skip?
I get up and I try, normally I wake up now around 4:30. So I try to put on some kind of affirmations for morning meditation, whether it's 5 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever. I try and do that. I exercise a little bit in the bed for my back, and I get up. I answer my phone because most of the women in London are already at 5 a.m. It's 10 a.m. for them. So I send out messages. Then I go for a morning walk. I take care of my family, and I work most days. And I have women in London, and I have people in California. So my time zones are quite. I have people in India. I have people around the world. So I try my best, and normally somehow I'm always at the right place at the right time, and I get to someone who needs me. So I keep my fingers crossed that that continues.
And a book that you can pick that changed your
Oh,
life.
oh my gosh, 1 minute. I've had many books, a lot of good books, but this book, it's called Mommy Goes to Meeting.
Can
It's a
can you
book
tell us more about this?
called Amy Liz Harrison that I was lucky enough to meet. And it's illustrated by her. It's a book for a mother or to read to her child. And my favorite page is Life will never be perfect, but my mom is no longer numb. She began a legacy of healing for us and for generations to come.
So
And
you
this
can
is the book.
actually relate to it, right?
Yeah. And I've had young women where I've sent this book um, that go to AA, and their kids will say, "Why are you going out again tonight, mommy? Why do you have to go out again?" And so they take this book and they read it to their child, and it's just easy. There's one about brother has a breakthrough. So it's about depression. She has cousin goes to counseling. She has sister speaks a spiritual life. And there's one about daddy has a depression. So I think she covers it quite nicely for a family to be able to talk to children in a beautiful way with beautiful images. So I think I always have to say that's my favorite book.
I think I need to make a pick as well.
Yeah.
Those are quite wonderful books that you can share with your kids. So
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. And are you a coffee person or a tea person?
Coffee.
And what does aligned living mean to you?
I think exercise. I think eating well. I think trying to be kind. I think those are the three for me.
And one thing that sobriety gave you that you never expected.
Um, the best compliment, and this is written by someone called Mike Ferrer from Sober Press. I met him over 8 years ago, and there's a poster behind my screen, but it said, "If hearts were made of gold, Kim's would be platinum." And that's the best compliment I've ever had given to me because I think it made me realize for the first time in my life, having a good heart and giving and being kind was one of the most important things in life you could be.
And one word that describes this season of your life.
But I think I'd have to say grace.
Absolutely 100%. Yes, it definitely has to be grace, Kim.
Mm.
And this brings us to the last question. I just wish this conversation never ended, but then we have to do what we have to do. So, if someone listening today is laying awake at night, wondering whether how, life without alcohol could actually be joyful, what would you want them to know?
I think I would say to them, um, be kind to yourself. Be as kind to yourself as you would be to somebody else that would be asking you that question. Give it a try. You've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. And you do deserve a great life.
And everybody is worth it, right?
Yes.
Everybody has the right to live a wonderful life.
Yes. And you know what? I think the beauty of part of the sobriety is learning to love who you are. Because we're all
Accepting
good and we
yourself.
all have qualities and we all seem to forget, and that's one thing I used to do with a lot of the young women I met was I would start with sending them affirmations in the morning and at night. And I would say, you have to give me one word after the words I am. And one school teacher said to me, there's nothing. There's nothing. I said, Jackie, there has to be something. So we started with, I am funny. I am art. I am sweet. I am, all these words that don't mean anything. And she was a grade 5 school teacher at the time. And after 6 months, she sent me a message saying, Kim, I could never say one good thing about myself. And now I start my day with my students that everybody has to start with I am, with one positive word to build their self esteem. So I think that's an important thing to do.
Thank you so much, Kim, setting aside time for this conversation. And I hope to talk to you again someday
Yeah.
and keep
And,
motivating, keep creating this awareness among
and
everyone.
and I hope you walk with us on September 26th, National Recovery Day, and the world will be walking, and no one should be walking alone. And everything, life,
Yeah,
love.
and we will definitely share the details.
Yes,
Once I get it from Kim, I would definitely share the details so that you can also walk and
yes,
yes, and make a difference. Like we all can make a difference in our own way.
yeah, yes. And whether you're walking for your mother, your brother, your sister, your father, your neighbor, your friend, you can walk together.
Yes. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you.
To stay connected, visit our website and follow Healthy Aligned Living on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube for more conversations, insights, and updates. If you would like to reach out, you can contact us by phone at 1-866-213-0518 or email us at info@healthyalignedliving.com. And if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who might benefit from it as well.